Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today, we're going to be considering at what point in history did militaries start using the civilian hunting tactics of using camouflage and accuracy. Okay, um, so it seems to be about 100 years ago during World War One. Prior to that, militaries wanted to be seen. Okay, they fought in large concentrations and they, when they used projectile weapons, they were basically just putting fire in an area rather than trying to target a specific, individual. Okay, so that's what militaries have used for most of history. By contrast, we have cave paintings that date back to about 8,000 BC that show prehistoric hunters wearing camouflage and being stealthy, in their hunt. Okay, so both camouflage, stealth, accuracy. These are civilian hunting tactics that the militaries have slowly adopted. Okay, so if we go back, let's say to the medieval period, okay, um, they're basically over the armor, they typically wore a coat of arms or a talbot, something so that they could distinguish themselves. They knew who their guys are. They knew who the opposing team was. Okay, and officers or knights, or lords, barons, basically the higher status people in some way distinguished themselves, okay, because during the medieval period, basically you did not want to kill knights, you wanted to capture them and ransom them. Okay, so these were high value people. Okay, they weren't worth anything dead. You wanted to capture them alive. Likewise, if they were losing the battle, they preferred to be captured alive. That's one of the reasons why medieval knights liked to fight so much, because they didn't get killed often. And basically, it was kind of like a high stakes gambling game for them. Okay, you go a little bit forward into history. Let's look at the British Empire. We see the British redcoats, right, wearing these red coats. Again, bright colored uniform. Everybody knew who they were, and basically, presumably, anybody that wasn't wearing a red coat was not on their side. Okay, and let's take a look at the Brown Bess, right, the smoothbore musket that the British were using. It only had a front sight on it, no rear sight, because they really weren't aiming. They were just pointing and putting fire into a general area. Okay, the rebel colonists, on the other hand, were using rifled weapons. Right at that point, I'm not even sure I can call it a rifle, though it's rifle. So yeah, it is a rifle. But they were using rifles that had front and rear sights, um, and they were specifically targeting British officers, which was considered very ungentlemanly. Okay, so that was something that the British don't like very much. So, but the point there is that you can see a change in tactics. Okay, at one point they're using very bright colors. The military is using bright colors to distinguish themselves. They're basically they're basically putting concentrated fire into a given area, right, rather than trying to target like specific individuals. And then there's this gradual transition. It really wasn't until World War One that the U.S. military started experimenting with camouflage. Okay, and I'm sure that throughout history, militaries did occasionally experiment with camouflage. I'm sure that there were irregular units around the world that would have that would have employed camouflage. But as a general rule, large militaries did not use camouflage. They used colors so that they could be seen. Okay, and to put it lightly, that's what one was, right? It wasn't the camouflage guys that were, if there was a few guys out there in camouflage, that probably isn't what was winning the wars. It was the large concentrations of people that were winning the wars. It wasn't until later on that they started using different weapons, different tactics. And they started using sniping tactics, okay, which again kind of went through it was it went through a slow transition, okay. Um, I know, for example, during World War II, General Bradley, okay, had said that he really would prefer, and I'm paraphrasing here, but basically he said that he really didn't mind if German snipers were not captured alive, okay? That kind of gives, I mean, that kind of indicates to us what a low regard the military in general had for snipers and this whole creeping around, taking these shots, in the dark or from the woods or out of trees. Officers among all armies generally had a pretty low regard for that style of fighting. It probably isn't until after World War II that it started becoming what I would consider, more glamorous, okay, more glamorized. But the point that I'm really bringing out here, this is a civilian hunting tactic that was adopted by the military, the American military and other militaries around the world. And I'm basically putting this out there to you. So if anybody ever gives you any criticism for dressing in camouflage or training with your guns, right, and tells you that you're copying the military or you're being like a military wannabe type of guy, you tell them that the opposite is true, right? You tell them that it's the military that's copying civilian hunting tactics because it's a lot more effective and successful than some of the stuff that they had been doing in the past, okay? So again, military's only been doing that kind of stuff for the last 100 years. And civilian hunting, we have records of it going back to 8,000 BC, so that's 10,000 years ago, okay? The other thing that I would put out there for you guys is when somebody tells you that, by wearing camouflage and training with your guns, you're being a military wannabe, right? You tell them that, why on earth would you want to associate yourself with the government, okay? Why would you want to do that? I mean, the main thing that this government has been doing in my lifetime is trying to limit people's rights and basically take their money and wealth away, okay? So why would I want to associate myself with the government? I have never served the government. I would never want my kids to serve this government or any other government for that matter. So if I was ever going to fight to defend my home, right, it would be in a militia. It would never be under contract to any government, okay? So another thing I'm putting out there for you guys to kind of work with. I'm giving you guys material to work with for when they come, when those people come along and tell you that you're trying, basically you're trying to be a military wannabe. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys are able to relate to this video. Drop some comments below. If you're not a member of the channel, subscribe, hit that bell button. I'll talk to you guys soon.